Hello, Suns fans. This is Suns Latest. I am Rich Rubin. As of this recording, over 2,050 Sunscribers. Thank you for bleeding purple and orange. Thank you for Sunscribing. When you sign up on YouTube for Suns Latest on FanArch, you become a Sunscriber. You are no longer a subscriber. Appreciate you. Appreciate your comments. A lot to go over today, and something really cool happened last night, and I will tell you about it. Training camp opens in September. Here is the preseason schedule. Monday, October 5th at Detroit. Wednesday, October 7th at United Center in Chicago. Saturday, October 10th, Spurs in Phoenix at Mortgage Matchup Center. Wednesday, we go to San Antonio to play the Spurs on the 14th of October, and then back in Phoenix against the Jazz Friday, October 16th. The big news today is we got the villain for a few more years. It happened after I recorded yesterday's Suns Latest, so I'm sorry I'm late with it. Forward Dillon Brooks and the Suns agreed on a 3-year, $73 million extension through 2029-30, according to his agent Mike George of Clutch Sports and Shams Charania of ESPN. More than anyone, it was Dillon Brooks who helped make the Suns one of the best and grittiest defensive teams for the first half of the season last year. Before injuries hit us, I thought we were at least a 50-win team, and we were vying for the 6th seed before injuries hit us in the second half of the season. But we surprised everybody last year, especially in the first half of the season. And straight up, Dillon Brooks making it clear nobody was going to push the Suns around anymore. This was a different Suns team. Maybe still a little finesse, but definitely not backing down. And he wasn't what you would call a throw-in for the Kevin Durant trade. I remember seeing that his name along with Jalen Green come to Phoenix for KD, and I was like, we got Dillon Brooks, a guy that we all hate? How's that going to work out? Worked out pretty well. Season career high, 20.2 points per game, about 4 rebounds a game. Suns 145. We were closing in on the 6th seed. We made the playoffs. Every single basketball expert, including some Suns fans and some good Suns fans, all said, I don't know if we're going to hit the 10th seed this year. We are now back in the luxury tax. That is by design. Owner Matt Ishbia didn't want to gut the roster too much. Keeping villain was priority. Quote from Matt Ishbia last year when trade rumors were circulating about Dillon Brooks going to the Lakers for Austin Reeves. Quote, don't bother calling. Suns aren't interested. Dillon's not going anywhere. Put that one on Twitter. So I'm happy that Dillon Brooks is going to stay with the Suns. He's going to get right to about, 33? He had his best season last year at 30. What is it about guys at around their 30s coming to the Suns and having their best year? Steve Nash, anybody? And now this is the coolest thing, and this just happened yesterday, and I wanted to talk about it. I rarely go out unless I'm with my wife, but she's doing business in Rancho Mirage or something. So she's away. So I had a voiceover gig in Santa Monica, and I stopped at a really nice bar at a really nice hotel because I didn't want to deal with rush hour. So I said, I'll give myself an hour, and then I'll get back in the car. But I find myself at this bar, and I've been to this bar a couple of times. It's not hoity-toity. It's just really nice. And I have seen celebrities and so many athletes. I've seen John Sally. I've seen JaVale McGee, DeAndre Jordan, Meta Sandiford Artest. I've seen him there like 3 times. Juancho Hernan Gomez, the former Celtic. He was a star of The Hustle with Adam Sandler. I've seen him there. Saw Blake Griffin there. Saw Beast Mode there. I saw Jared Goff there. I actually shook his hand. And I saw hot dog eating champ Joey Chestnut there. So last night, I'm sitting by myself, just having a beer, and I feel the presence of a large person sit down right next to me, exchange hellos. He's with a beautiful girl. And I'm like, it takes a second, and then I realize it's former NBA Rookie of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year and back-to-back champ with the Heat, Mike Miller, one of the greatest shooters of all time that nobody ever talks about. And about 10, 15 minutes later, I finally said to him, I said, look, I'll buy you a drink if you answer a basketball question for me. And he's the nicest guy in the world, and he totally does. And he says, yeah, what do you want to ask? And I said, how many wins do you think the Phoenix Suns are going to get next season? And right away, he's like, what'd they do last season? I go, 45. He's like, they could get 50 because they didn't really gut the team. They kind of kept it intact of what made them good. They're going to miss Grayson, but I think they got some good pieces to fit around Devin Booker. And he says, I have a feeling Booker and Green are going to do better than most people think. 48, low estimate. That's what he said. It was like the neatest thing, but we kept talking. And he's a co-owner of Lift Management. So they represent NBA players, WNBA players, and some pro football players. He reps Robert Williams III. Sixers rookie LeBaron Philon, Nate Amon. He told me about LeBaron Philon, who's a 6'4", 185-pound point guard that the Sixers got. And he said, your Suns were coming after that guy. They wanted that guy. So it's not that the Suns aren't looking for a point guard. They're trying. They're going to do all the stuff we talked about with Point Book, and he agreed with me regarding Suns playing guys out of position all the way back to the 70s. And it was really cool. And he said, hey, you should work in sports management. And I'm like, well, I just have opinions. I don't know if I'd actually be able to facilitate that. But I mentioned that Booker was better with Rubio and Chris Paul. And he said, yeah, he needs a point guard. I mean, like, why not just do that? The Suns were always doing that with players playing out of position. So we had an agreement on that, and that was very validating. A lot of you agree with me on that, and I think that was really cool, especially talking to a guy who's seen it from up front and who I was on the business end of repping NBA players. The coolest thing he did tell me, though, was his playing. When he was playing, his agent was the legendary Arn Tellem. Look up Arn Tellem and look at the history of what this guy did with the NBA. He has a lot of history. He did a lot of stuff regarding Kobe getting to the Lakers. He did a lot of stuff with getting guys ridiculous contracts after a lot of people thought they were washed up. He was Mike Miller's agent. He is now, I think, a vice chair for the Pistons, and his son, Matty, is an assistant to Gregory on the Suns. So some legendary stuff going on there. The last thing I asked was, who was the strongest guy you ever played against? And without hesitation, Mike Miller said, Shaq. He said, I never ran into somebody that big and strong. And I said, pound for pound, I always thought it was Charles Barkley. And he goes, Charles was strong. I didn't go up against him. He was an outside player. Charles was more of an inside player, at least early in their career. But he did offer up, he thought Thunder Dan Marley, not only one of the strongest guys he ever played against, but is arguably one of the toughest guys he ever played against. And he said Thunder Dan Marley was underrated while he was playing, and he's even more underrated now. His name should be brought up more. He thought he was exceptional and a really unique type of player. So when I left, I thanked him, and he wouldn't let me dry him a bink, but he said, as I was writing, he goes, Phoenix Suns. And I said, yes. And he says, great talking to you. I'll see you. This happened last night. So can you beat that? Rhetorical. I had to just share that. That happened last night, and it just blew my freaking mind. So a lot of respect to Mike Miller and Lift Management, and that was. Anytime you get a chance to ask an NBA former pro, current pro question, do it, because if they're game, you'll have the best conversation of your life, and that happened to me last night, and I wanted to share that with y'all. Let's get to your comments. Arnie Koo, I think you are new to Suns Latest. Welcome, Arnie. Arnie asks, why wouldn't Oso make a really good 4? We need to get some height on the floor. I said he'd be better at power forward than center. I mean, he's not comfortable with his back to the basket. At least that's what I noticed. Or at least he was getting to that comfort level because he played 82 games and he had to keep filling in for Mark Williams, and Man wasn't ready. Some viewers don't think he'd be a good power forward either as his game is more finesse. So, I mean, do you want a power forward with that weird little push shot who's a marginal rebounder and can't make free throws? I don't want any player like that, but Oso's what we got, and he is unique. I still think he has room to improve, and he was thrust into playing center last year. And Coach Ott really likes him, and he sees something in him that, we're not coaching in the NBA, so maybe we're missing something. Let's see what he can do with the full season behind him. A lot more confidence, hopefully a few new moves this season, and he didn't get injured, and he hasn't been injured, so that's for the Suns. Oh my God, that's huge. John Freeman, I like rotation of Booker and Green. Did you mean that like one of them on the bench and one of them starting, or the two of them together? I think you mean rotating them. I mean, it would make sense. It would make sense, right? Yeah. A lot of you came after me really bad regarding Booker coming off the bench. I get it. Just talking logically. Not a lot of comments today, and that's okay because we do have to get to the all-time all-hate team. I don't have any NBA news for you that's very current, except I got to talk to Mike Miller last night. But the all-hate team continues. It is now time for the all-time all-hate team. We did SGA, Lou Dort, Draymond Green, Alperen Şengün. One of you said like he has T-Rex arms. You guys are just loading up in Şengün. And I forgot who the other guy was who I mentioned for the all-time, the current all-hate team. But it doesn't matter. You'll remind me. But I do want to get to it. Let's start by saying that even though Draymond Green was on the current players all-hate team, he's still an all-time all-hate team player. And that leads us into a guy who's probably one of the most hated players of all time, and that would be Patrick Beverley. There are so many reasons to hate this guy, but we'll start with the positives. He played excellent defense and made 3 All-NBA defensive teams. One time he made first-team All-Defense. He had to be a good defender. He was a below-average on offense player. He had a 7-year NBA career. For some reason, I thought he was in the NBA longer than that. He was on a lot of G League teams, and he was cutting back and forth a lot. And he kept bouncing from team to team after a while. He is still playing somewhere in Greece, last I checked. As he got older and couldn't do it anymore, he became a real jackass. And his play reflected that. So much more talking, so many more fouls, a lot of suspensions. Even when he was good, he got suspended a whole lot too. But as he got older, it was just like he can't do it anymore, so he's got to start it. He's got to start things every single game, and that's really when I started to hate this guy. Mostly known for talking out of his butt, saying stupid things to players, so much better than him. And doing stupid things to players, so much better than him. A self-described dog, did a lot of little bitch things. In college, he became academically ineligible due to cheating, which turned out to be someone doing a paper for him, turning it in, and then Patrick Beverley saying, "Oh yeah, no, I wrote that paper." He did admit guilt and accepted full punishment, and he said, "Well, it's over. I already admitted it." So he's one of those guys that, like, he screws up really badly. He's a do it and apologize later kind of guy, which after a while catches up to you, and clearly caught up to him as far as I'm concerned. He admitted guilt about the paper and went overseas to play ball. In 2021, he pushed the Suns' Chris Paul in the back after Chris Paul said something to him that got him upset. Yeah, most dogs don't get upset. They're just tough, and they don't let what anybody says affect them. Pat Beverley let everything affect him. He got suspended. He had to miss the first game of the following season, and his Clippers lost that game, which also ended their season in the playoffs. It was the first real chink in his defensive armor because he couldn't guard Chris Paul during those playoffs. So all he did was talk smack, make fun of him. He kind of made an ass out of himself, like doing the fake flopping thing. He did everything he could to get into Chris Paul's head, and then he gets suspended, and they lost. So that kind of tells you how effective the guy was. The next year, now with the Timberwolves, they make the play-in, and the guy gets up in the scorer's table and just like, it was kind of embarrassing. You guys, it's the play-in, and I know it's exciting when your team does it, but he kind of made it about himself. I thought it was weird. He's thrown basketballs at fans. He had weird interactions with a female reporter who she asked him a question. He says, "You can't ask that unless you subscribe to my podcast." Just like, what? And then the shove on DeAndre Ayton again in the back in the 2022 playoffs gets him a 3-game suspension. It's just the guy, for a tough guy, he likes to shove people in the back. So there are others, but a guy like this who made the most of limited talent, also being just a complete a-hole and thinking he's a tough guy while doing that, he's got a special place on the all-time hate team. Congratulations, Pat. You're not good enough to be in the NBA anymore, but we will remember you for shoving people in the back. I don't know. So anyway, let's get to your quote. Where is my quote? Here we go. Alrighty. It's from Pat Beverley as well. Quote, "You had the last 5 years. The next 5 years are mine," end quote. Patrick Beverley said that in 2019 to Steph Curry during a game. Curry laughed and said, "Aren't you 31? There's self-confidence, there's delusion, and then there's the whole new level that is Patrick Beverley. He kicks off the all-time all-hate team. We're going to get to more tomorrow, and I got to speak to Mike Miller last night. Appreciate you watching Suns Latest. Go Suns!